Hey, welcome back. So today, let's take a little mental vacation. Before we go anywhere, take a deep breath. Clear your mind. Picture it, a quiet mountaintop temple at sunrise, mist curling through ancient pine trees, and the faint whisper of bamboo chimes brushing the air. In the distance, a lone samurai stands with perfect posture, blade at his side, eyes closed in calm meditation. You've seen this image before. Maybe in a movie, maybe an anime, maybe a tourist ad for Kyoto. It's beautiful, peaceful, almost sacred. But here's the truth. Most people skip over that vision, that romantic postcard version of medieval Japan. It's an illusion, a well-packaged dream, polished by centuries of myth and modern storytelling. And while it's tempting to imagine yourself stepping into that serene, spiritual world, sipping tea with monks, training with katanas under cherry blossoms, if you actually woke up there, you wouldn't survive the day. Because medieval Japan, for most of its people, was not a world of elegant silence and noble restraint. It was a ruthless hierarchy wrapped in ritual, a daily test of obedience, endurance, and physical suffering, all under the watchful gaze of custom, clan, and the sword. If you weren't born into the right class, didn't understand the right gestures, or stepped on the wrong piece of earth, the consequences were swift and often permanent. You'd be sleeping on a straw mat in a one-room hut with 6 family members and a chicken. Your body would be covered in flea bites. Your food would be spoiled, your water barely drinkable, and your job, if you had one, would break your back by noon. If you were a woman, your choices were obedience or suspicion. If you were poor, your value was measured in silence. And if you were unlucky, well, medieval Japan didn't believe in second chances. This wasn't just a tough time to live in. It was a world built to keep you exactly where you were. Tired, bowed, and invisible, and yet, that's the part no one tells you. The anime skips it. The travel guides forget it. The samurai dramas turn it into background noise. But tonight, we're not skipping it. We're going straight into it. Eyes open, no filter. So dim the lights. Get comfortable and prepare yourself. Because the Japan you think you know is about to disappear. And the one that replaces it, it's sharper, darker, and far less forgiving. Let's make one thing clear before we go any deeper. This isn't just about discomfort. This isn't about roughing it, or dealing with an outhouse, or skipping your morning espresso. No, this is about survival. Real, hard, bone-deep survival in a system designed to test every inch of your body, mind, and spirit daily. Because in medieval Japan, there's no room for your modern habits, your preferences, or your ideas of fairness. You're not just entering the past, you're stepping into an entirely different logic, a place where your rights are determined before you're even born, where your name, your clothes, your job, even your silence can betray you. Here's what that means in practice. If you don't understand the unspoken rules, you're already in danger. If you speak too loudly in the wrong presence, bow at the wrong angle, or touch something sacred by accident, that's not a social faux pas. That's an insult that could get you beaten, branded, or worse. Forget to remove your sandals before stepping inside someone's home? You've just shown total disrespect. Touch someone of higher class without permission? That's assault. Get too curious about the local shrine, or ask the wrong question to a monk. That's heresy. And trust me, forgiveness wasn't trending in the 14th century. And let's talk about your body. You might think you're in decent shape. Gym membership, a few hikes here and there. Doesn't matter. You haven't walked 12 miles barefoot through cold mud carrying firewood on your back after harvesting rice in waist-deep water for 10 hours. You haven't squatted over a pit toilet in freezing wind while praying no one walks by and decides to teach you a lesson. You haven't eaten fermented millet for 5 days straight and called it a lucky week. In medieval Japan, your suffering doesn't buy you empathy. It just proves you're still alive. And if you're a woman, the stakes rise faster, higher, earlier. Your marriage is a transaction. Your body, a tool. You're judged not by your ideas, but by your obedience, your fertility, and your silence. There's no room for opinion, no space for defiance. One misstep, one whisper of rebellion, and suddenly, you're not a wife or a mother. You're a burden, or worse, a liability. And here's the twist that hurts the most. There is no one coming to save you, no system you can appeal to, no hotline to call, no social movement, no advocacy, no future version of you to hold out for. You either endure, obey, and disappear into the system, or you fall through its cracks and vanish. You think you'd survive a day in medieval Japan? Not with those shoes, not with that pride, and definitely not with that soft modern heart. The first thing you notice is the cold, not the kind that creeps in, the kind that waits for you, pressed into the floorboards, soaked into the air, curled into your bones. You wake not in a bed, but on a stiff straw mat, thin enough to feel every lump of the dirt-packed floor underneath. The blanket, a frayed rectangle of cotton you share with your younger sibling. Your pillow is a block of wood, not metaphorically, literally a block. Your family sleeps around you in a single open room. Mother, father, your sister, your grandfather, with the cough that hasn't stopped since last winter. A clay pot simmers on last night's embers, but it's not food. It's just water, and even that's rationed. You blink, trying to shake the stiffness from your limbs, but it's no use. You're 10 hours of sleep into a body that already feels 50 years old. There's no privacy here, no closed doors, no soft morning silence. Someone is already clearing their throat. Someone else is stepping over your legs to get outside, and the chicken that lives under the porch, your only source of eggs, is screaming like it knows something you don't. You do your best not to disturb anyone, not out of kindness, out of fear. Raising your voice before the sun is considered disrespectful, especially toward your elders. One wrong word, and you're on your knees for hours in apology, or worse, made to atone by hauling water alone from the river. Again, you shift onto your side and scratch your ribs. The itching never stops. Fleas, lice. You gave up naming them weeks ago. You don't even flinch when they bite now. They live on you, with you, around you. That's just life. And speaking of life, you're already late. The temple bell hasn't rung yet, but your father is up, washing his face with ice-cold water, scooped from a wooden bucket. You follow without a word. That water stings like needles, but you're not allowed to complain. Complaint is weakness. Weakness is shame. You bow to your parents. You bow to the altar in the corner, where a carved figure of Jizzo stares back with eternal indifference. You whisper thanks for surviving another night, and then you prepare to start surviving the next one. There is no morning ritual of stretching or scrolling or standing in the light. No coffee, no news, no moment to breathe. There is only the work waiting for you outside, and the slow, silent countdown to your first mistake. So you've managed to crawl off your straw mat without waking the entire household. Congratulations. Small victories matter here. But now, nature calls. And unlike modern life, where this part of your morning happens with the press of a button and the luxury of solitude, here it's a little more complicated. Actually, it's a lot more complicated because in medieval Japan, the act of relieving yourself isn't private, it isn't clean, it isn't even consistent. It's a chore, a ritual, a public performance, and a reminder, first thing in the morning, that your body, like your class, belongs in a very specific place. One wrong move, and you don't just offend someone's nose, you offend the social order itself. Let's start with the basics. Toilets. If you're imagining anything like the porcelain throne in your home, erase it. In a rural peasant village, where most of the population lives, the toilet is a pit, just a shallow hole dug into the ground behind the house or beside a rice field. There's no seat, no roof, no separation between you and the elements. The wooden planks meant to give you footing are often slippery from rain, algae, or something worse. You squat carefully, nervously, because slipping is a daily danger, not the oops, I fell in mud kind of danger. The I fell into a hole full of waste, broke my arm, and now I might die from infection kind of danger. It happens more than anyone wants to admit. But worse than the danger is the exposure. There are no privacy screens, no doors, no soundproofing. If someone walks by, and someone always does, they see you. And if you're female, multiply the risk by 10. You're expected to be modest, quiet, invisible. Yet here you are, in the open, with your garments hitched and your dignity balanced between your ankles and a 2-foot drop. And what do you wipe with? If you're lucky, there's some straw nearby, maybe a handful of leaves. If your family is better off, meaning less poor, not wealthy, you might have a rag set aside for reuse, but reuse means washing. And washing means hauling water. And hauling water means someone's entire afternoon. So most days, you just don't. You do what you can, and then you walk away, pretending your skin isn't burning, pretending your smell won't follow you into the day. But wait, there's more, because this isn't just about where you go. It's about where it goes, where it goes. In urban centers like Kyoto or Kamakura, the waste has a destination. The streets, human excrement, animal waste, food scraps, all carried in buckets by night soil collectors or tossed into designated canals. Sometimes it ends up in rice paddies, fertilizing the crops you'll be eating later. That's right, the same rice you bow before at dinner It owes its yield to the contents of last night's bucket. No one says this out loud, but everyone knows. And if you're of the ETA class, outcast, untouchable, you may be the one tasked with managing this cycle, cleaning waste, handling corpses, skinning animals. You're not thanked. You're barely acknowledged. But your job keeps the village running. And still, you can't enter the temple, marry freely, or use the communal baths. Because your work, no matter how vital, is considered impure. But let's not stop there. Let's talk bathing. Because surely, that's the upside to all this, right? Clean, warm water, a steam-filled room, a moment of peace. Not quite. Yes, Japan, even in the medieval era, placed great value on cleanliness. But what modern culture paints as graceful rituals were, in reality, demanding, class-based ordeals with more pressure than pleasure. If you're a farmer, bathing is rare. You don't have the luxury of heating water unless you skip cooking. There's a public bathhouse in town, sure, but getting there means walking miles. And when you arrive, there's no guarantee you'll be welcome. Not if you're a woman, not if you're poor, not if your body carries the wrong kind of dirt. When you do bathe, it's communal. You sit on a low stool beside strangers, or neighbors who aren't particularly fond of you. The water isn't fresh for each guest. It's reused. A shared wooden tub, filled early in the morning and slowly darkening with each body that enters. You clean yourself before you soak. Scrub with a cloth. Splash yourself with bucketed water. Soap, if you have it, is made from ash or coarse plant oils. It's rough, sometimes painful. You remove layers of sweat, grime, blood, fleas, and still, you feel dirty. Not physically, socially, because the bathhouse is a place of status. And you, with your calloused hands and patched robes, aren't fooling anyone. They know where you came from. They can see it in how long you stay, how carefully you bow, how few words you speak. In some villages, the bathing order is enforced by caste. Samurai first, merchants after, peasants next. Etta? Never. And women? At night. Always supervised, always watched. For women, bathing is a balancing act between purity and punishment. You're expected to be clean, but modest. You must care for your body, but not display it. You must enter the bathhouse quietly, leave invisibly, and never, ever be seen laughing. Laughter is freedom. Freedom is danger. And let's not forget, bathing isn't daily. It's weekly, maybe. Monthly, if times are hard. The water you haul, you measure with care. Because clean water is a resource, and in many places, it's poisoned. Rivers filled with human waste, dead animals, decaying offerings from upstream villages. Your immune system becomes your greatest armor, but it's not infallible. One bad gulp, one infected cut, one careless rinse in tainted water, and suddenly your stomach is rotting from the inside out. Diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration. In modern life, it's a trip to the pharmacy. Here, it's the first step toward death. But you don't stop. You can't stop. You bow your head, splash your face, fold your hands, and pretend that you feel refreshed. Because to show weakness, even when naked, even when shivering, is a kind of death all its own. So the next time you turn on your faucet, let the warm water run and shut the bathroom door behind you without a second thought. Remember this: in medieval Japan, the simple act of relieving yourself or washing your skin wasn't just about hygiene, it was about class, ritual, survival, and shame. You've survived the morning cold, the lice, the aching joints, and the open air toilet. You've washed your hands, maybe, or at least wiped them on your robe. And now, like any human being, after a long night, your stomach is growling loudly. It's time for breakfast. But this isn't the part of the day where you recharge and nourish yourself. Not here, not now. In medieval Japan, breakfast isn't a meal. It's a reminder, a quiet but crushing signal that your place in the world begins at the bottom of a bowl and stays there. Let's set the table. Actually, no, there is no table. If you're lucky enough to have food this morning, you'll be crouched near the hearth, squatting on your haunches, perhaps on a woven mat. If your family has one that isn't already too frayed, the room is still cold. The firewood was used sparingly, barely enough to warm the pot that simmered overnight, filled with water, scraps of rice, and the occasional twist of pickled greens. You're not eating omelets, fruit, or steaming miso soup. You don't even know what miso is, unless you live near a market town and belong to a wealthier caste. You are most likely eating okayu, thin rice gruel. White rice, mind you, is a luxury. You're using mixed rice at best, often brown or red and padded with millet or barley. In a bad season, it's just barley alone, cooked until it's mush, or even rice husks, the leftovers of someone else's dinner. That sour taste in your mouth? That's pickled daikon, sharp, acidic, fermented until it burns a little. You don't get seconds. You don't ask for more, because asking implies desire, and desire is a dangerous thing in a system built on restraint. And then there's the silence. Breakfast is not chatty. You eat with your head down. You chew slowly, mostly because it takes effort. Some of the grains are undercooked. The roots are fibrous. There may be a tiny bone shard in the broth, a leftover from a fish caught 3 days ago, boiled once, and used 3 times. Every piece of your food was earned, taxed, rationed, or repurposed. There's no waste. Not because everyone's sustainable, but because there's nothing left to waste. Now look across the village. The large house with the tiled roof and the stone lanterns outside. That's the estate of the samurai, the ruling military class. They're not eating gruel. They're having grilled fish, seasoned rice, pickled vegetables, cut into decorative shapes, tea, not boiled water, miso, not run off. Their breakfast is flavored with access. Yours is flavored with fear. Fear of poor harvests, bad taxes, harsh seasons, or simply a mistake that offends the wrong official. A spilled bowl, a cracked dish, a complaint overheard. These can become problems far bigger than hunger, and heaven help you if you're of the ETA or Heenan classes, the untouchables, and non-people, respectively. You're not just hungry, you're unclean, unworthy, and unwelcome in communal spaces. You don't get to sit near the hearth. You don't get served first. If at all, your food is separated, your bowl is separate, and in many cases, your rice is given to you with the same respect one might offer a stray dog. No eye contact, no gratitude. You are a body to be fed only so that you can serve. And when you can't serve anymore, no one feeds you at all. Now, if you're a woman, your day begins even earlier. You don't get served. You do the serving. You wake before the men. You stir the pot, rinse the rice, sweep the dust, and bow your head so low your back aches before breakfast even begins. You don't eat first. Often, you don't eat with your family. You eat what's left after the men have filled their stomachs and the children have wiped their mouths. And if you're pregnant, you eat double, not in quantity, in responsibility. Because now, every bite is measured twice. Once for you, once for the life inside you. And the irony is cruel. In a society that demands sons, you're often fed like a shadow. Some days, if the harvest was poor, there's no breakfast at all. Just water, maybe warm, if someone stoked the fire. You tie a piece of cloth around your belly to silence the noise. You walk out the door with an empty stomach, a bowed head, and the knowledge that lunch may never come either. But no one talks about hunger here. To be hungry is normal. To complain is shameful. So you swallow your saliva and pretend you're full. You listen to your neighbor's stomach growl and pretend you didn't hear. You accept that this quiet, stiff, aching start is the best part of your day. Because at least you're not bleeding. At least you're not being whipped. At least you're not being judged by a noble for spilling barley on your robe. At least you're alive, but barely. So yes, breakfast in medieval Japan feeds the body, just enough. But it also feeds the system, a system where food is power, where meals are measured by caste, and where your place in the world is confirmed again and again, one bland, half-boiled, bitter mouthful at a time. Tomorrow will be the same, and you'll be grateful for it, because the only thing worse than waking up to this meal is waking up to none at all. You've swallowed your last bite of rice paste, bowed to your elders, and stepped outside. The morning fog clings low to the ground. Your sandals crunch softly over cold earth. But before you walk into whatever labor awaits you, and trust me, it's coming, you take stock of what you're wearing. Because in medieval Japan, your clothes are not just fabric. They are your place, your boundaries, your first defense, and your permanent burden. Let's start with the obvious. You have one outfit, maybe two, if you're lucky, or your parents manage to barter during the spring tax season. But one is more likely. It's made from rough hemp or unbleached cotton, thick with time, stiff from wear, and reeking of salt, sweat, and wood smoke. You've worn it every day for months. It's not lined. It's not dyed. Unless your family's status allows for indigo, which it doesn't. And no, it doesn't fit perfectly. It was passed down, altered by hand, stitched together from pieces of older garments, worn by your brother before you, and maybe by your uncle before him. The seams are loose, the hem is frayed, the sleeves hang unevenly, but you tie the obi, a thin cloth belt, snug around your waist, not to make it look better, just to keep it on. It's called a kosode, a basic robe-like tunic that will eventually evolve into the elegant kimono centuries later. But now, it's a working garment. practical, scratchy, plain, and don't mistake simplicity for freedom. Every thread says something about who you are, and more importantly, who you're not. Because the samurai wear silk. Their kosode is crisp, pressed, and layered. The merchants, who technically sit lower than samurai, but often have more money, wear patterned cotton. Even the priests wear robes dyed with saffron or ash. You? You wear earth, the color of dirt, of rice chaff, of invisibility. Your clothes carry more than your sweat. They carry expectation. You are expected to kneel in them, to labor in them, to never, under any circumstance, remove them in public. To show skin is vulgar and dangerous. Exposing your arms, your legs, your chest, even by accident, that's not just improper, it's a violation of decency, a signal to those watching that you are either desperate or defiant. Both can be punished. And yes, it itches. Fleas live in the seams, lice crawl in the folds. You scratch discreetly, constantly, but never complain. If your family notices, they say nothing. They're itching too. When the seasons change, your clothes don't. There's no summer outfit and winter layering. There's just the same thing, but colder. You might add a second kosode, still hemp, still rough, still damp from last week's storm. If it snows, you line the inside with straw, not because it works well, just because it's something. Shoes, if you're wearing any, they're waraji, sandals woven from rice straw. You tie them around your feet with twine. They last 2, maybe 3 days. They don't keep water out. They don't keep rocks out. They barely keep your feet in. So, most peasants go barefoot, calloused soles, split heels, toenails blackened from stone bruises. You walk through rice paddies, frozen roads, chicken droppings, and human waste. There's no such thing as clean socks. There are no socks. And what about washing your clothes? Once a week? Try once a month, if you're lucky. If the river hasn't flooded, if there's time between hauling water, planting rice, and tending to your younger siblings. Washing isn't just an inconvenience. It's a full-body labor event. You soak the clothes in cold river water, scrub them with ashes or crushed beans, slap them against rocks, and leave them to dry on bushes. They never come out fresh, just less awful than before. And soap? You've heard of it. Maybe. It exists. Crude, handmade, made of wood, ash, and lard, if you can spare the ingredients. But usually, it's water, elbow grease, and hope. For women, the rules are worse. If you're a girl, your kosode must wrap leftover right, never the opposite. That's how corpses are dressed. Get it wrong, and the elders will notice. So will the gods. And in case that wasn't enough pressure, women's robes are longer, harder to walk in, harder to clean. You kneel, sit, and cook in the same garment you bled into 2 weeks ago. There's no access to clean cloth pads, so you use scraps, folded paper, or nothing at all. And you learn to hide the stains. Why? Because modesty isn't optional. It's weaponized. If your robe slips open and someone sees your ankle, that's shame. If your robe is too tight and outlines your hips, that's scandal. And if you're too attractive for your class, that's danger. Because unwanted attention here isn't inconvenient, it's a social trap, and no one will come to your defense. Now, imagine you're a member of a dishonored family. Maybe your father owed taxes he couldn't pay. Maybe your brother was caught stealing wood from the daimyo's forest. You're now marked, stigmatized, and you're not allowed to wear the same kozode anymore. You're forced to wear a symbol, maybe a cut sleeve, a ragged edge, or a rope belt instead of cloth. The world will see you, and they will know you are less. In medieval Japan, clothing doesn't protect your body. It exposes your status. It defines how you're treated, how you move, how you survive. There are no style choices, no self-expression, no fashion as art. There's just fabric and fear. So tomorrow, when you throw on a hoodie, tug on a soft pair of jeans, or even complain that your laundry cycle isn't done, remember this. In medieval Japan, your outfit didn't just shape how others saw you. It shaped whether you were seen as a person at all. By now, you've worked past hunger, dressed your skin in rags, scratched through another layer of flea bites, and walked barefoot through mud so cold it numbs the soles of your feet. You've held in your discomfort, swallowed your fear, bowed when expected, and silenced everything that makes you feel human. But pain doesn't care about etiquette, because in medieval Japan, pain comes silently, and it stays loudly. Maybe it starts with a dull ache behind your gums. Just one tooth. Nothing serious. You chew on the left instead of the right. You favor soft barley, avoid the radish. But by mid-morning, the ache grows hot, like an ember pressed against the bone. The side of your face swells. You taste iron in your spit. There are no dentists. There are no painkillers. There are no clean tools. And now, your real nightmare begins. You ask your mother, quietly, shamefully, if there's any herb left. Clove, ginger, yarrow, maybe anything to dull the edge. She soaks a cloth in rice vinegar, tells you to bite down. You do. It stings. It doesn't help. You're sent to the village Kuswishi, the medicine man. He's not a doctor in any modern sense. He's a mixture of herbalist, healer, and mystic. His hut smells of dried moss, soot, and something sharp, a medicinal rot. Shelves are lined with powders, bones, jars of animal parts suspended in cloudy fluid. You sit in silence while he pokes your swollen cheek. He doesn't ask where it hurts. He tastes the sickness through touch. According to him, your ki is imbalanced. The pain is a warning. The body is misaligned with the universe. The cure? Well, it depends. If you're lucky, it's a poultice, a hot compress wrapped in cloth, soaked in sake and mulberry. If you're less lucky, it's moxibustion, lighting bundles of mugwort on your skin to stimulate your meridians. That's right, fire, on your face. And if that fails, there's always the fallback, extraction. Tooth pulling in medieval Japan is done with tools you wouldn't use to open a wine bottle today. Heated iron, bamboo tongs, or sometimes bare fingers, wrapped in hemp twine. There's no antiseptic, no numbing agent, just sake, poured down your throat until you're half conscious, and an old man bracing your head against a wooden post. The pain is biblical. You scream. You choke on blood. The tooth breaks. Half stays in. Now there's nothing to do but wait. Pray the infection doesn't spread and hope that death doesn't reach you before the fever breaks. And that's just your mouth. Elsewhere, in your body, dozens of silent threats wait. An infected splinter, a cut from a sickle, a rash from dirty clothes, a blister that pops and never closes. You live your life exposed to every bite, every splatter of river water, every shared pot and a public bath. Germs don't exist yet, but death travels through breath, food, and silence. Got a fever? You're bled. Yes, bloodletting. You're cut at the wrist or neck to drain the bad heat, sometimes with a sharp shell, sometimes with a filthy blade. And if you're a woman, the fever might not even be acknowledged. You're simply told to endure. A cold? Maybe it's a seasonal spirit, a curse from failing to honor your ancestors. You're given powdered turtle shell, burned incense, boiled orange peel. None of it works. None of it works. If you start coughing blood, it's over. That's consumption, what we now call tuberculosis. Highly infectious, slow, relentless. You'll cough yourself thin. Your skin will go gray. Eventually, you'll die in your bedding, gasping between prayers, surrounded by loved ones who are already sick from being near you. No one wears masks. No one sanitizes hands. No one isolates. Because illness isn't just a medical event, it's spiritual punishment, the result of imbalance, impurity, or cosmic disapproval. If a monk visits, he may chant sutras. He may splash blessed water on your brow. But you're not given a diagnosis. You're given a verdict. If the sickness passes, it's fate. If it kills you, that's fate too. And if you get better, you're marked. Illness carries stigma. People assume you were punished by the gods. Neighbors will whisper. Employers, if you had one, might not take you back. A girl who gets sick too often becomes unmarriageable. A boy who survives a serious illness becomes suspect. What if it comes back? Even your death is suspect. In towns, if too many die too quickly, panic spreads faster than plague. Entire families are sealed inside their homes and left to rot. No one touches the body. No funeral. No cremation. Just silence, ash, and closed doors. And speaking of funerals, let's not romanticize them. If you're lucky, someone places a coin in your mouth, folds your hands, and burns a stick of incense. If you're poor, you're dumped in a common grave. No stone, no ceremony, just dirt, sky, and the same robes you wore in life, now soaked in fever sweat. This is medicine in medieval Japan, a delicate braid of fear, myth, half-truths, and bare-knuckled survival. You don't heal. You outlive the disease. If it leaves you scarred, disfigured, or maimed, you continue. Because stopping isn't an option. There's rice to plant, water to carry, children to feed. You bite down, swallow the pain, and get back to work. Because in this world, health isn't a right, it's a rumor. The sun hasn't even cleared the mountain ridges, and already your legs ache. You've eaten just enough to keep from fainting. A mouthful of warm water and rice gruel. And now it's time to begin the real part of your day, labor. And in medieval Japan, labor isn't just work. It's identity, duty, and punishment all in one. Whether you're a farmer, a craftsman, or simply born into a peasant household, your day begins and ends with physical strain, and there is no escape. There's no retirement, no weekends, no 8-hour cap. Your worth is measured by exhaustion. If your hands aren't raw, your back isn't bent, and your knees aren't permanently stained from kneeling in fields or floorboards, you're considered lazy, dangerous even. You walk to the fields barefoot. Your Waraji sandals, if you had any, snapped 3 days ago. The ground is uneven, packed hard, or worse, soft and sucking with cold mud from the last storm. But you walk anyway, because lateness is an insult to the clan. You don't own the land you're tending. You're a tenant farmer. The plot belongs to the local daimyo, a powerful warlord or nobleman who has never worked it a day in his life, but he owns it. And you owe him. Your family's entire rice yield is counted before you even plant it. A portion, often more than half, goes directly to taxes. You'll have to estimate how much you need to survive the year. And if you guess wrong, if a flood comes, if the seeds rot, that's not his problem. You owe him anyway. So you plant, row by row, hand by hand, hour after hour, in knee-deep water, hunched, swatting at mosquitoes, with your spine folding inward like a wilted reed. You are not farming for prosperity. You are farming to stay invisible. Because in this system, attention is risk. The sun rises higher. Your arms move slower. There is no shade in the rice fields. Your skin burns, peels, heals, burns again. Your neck is a permanent patchwork of sun scars. You feel every joint shift, grind, and scream. But still, you do not stop. Because stopping, that invites questions. And questions invite punishment. And if you're a woman, you don't just work the fields. You manage the household too. You cook. You clean. You fetch water from the river, carried in heavy clay jars on your shoulders, or strapped to your back with rope. You care for the children. You sweep ash from the hearth. You weave mats. You sew clothes. You offer prayers. You do all this with a quiet head and a bowed spine, because a woman who looks tired is considered disobedient. Your labor is invisible until it isn't. Then it becomes failure. Now imagine you're a child. You're not too young to work. In fact, if you're 6, you're already weeding, feeding animals, or hauling water. If you're 10, you're helping in the fields. There's no school, no time to play. And if you fall behind, you're whipped with a switch or sent to bed without food. Because this isn't cruelty. This is discipline. And discipline preserves the hierarchy. If you're born into a Barakuman family, the untouchable caste, your labor is different, bloodier, dirtier. You tan leather, clean latrines, process animal carcasses, carry bodies, or serve executioners. These jobs are critical, but you will be shunned for doing them. No one will eat with you. No one will marry you. You may live on the edge of the village, literally and socially, and no matter how hard you work, you can't work your way up, because this is feudalism, a caste-based system where mobility is a myth. Your role was written before you were born. You don't question it. You don't even fantasize about escaping it. The idea that life could be different, that's a disease modern minds catch. It doesn't survive here. And don't think urban laborers had it better. If you live in a growing town, you're a carpenter, a weaver, a blacksmith, or a street cleaner. You're on your feet from sunrise until the temple bell rings at dusk. You breathe in smoke, metal shavings, dust. You hammer, stitch, scrape, bend, lift. Your muscles are your only assets, and the moment they fail, you are replaceable. And that's the ultimate truth of labor here. You are never irreplaceable. Break your arm, someone else takes your job. Fall sick, your food goes to a cousin who can work. Lose a finger in the mill, bandage it, and get back to the grindstone. If you can't pull your weight, you are dead weight. And mercy is expensive. Even the samurai, who live lives of prestige, are not idle. Their labor is political, brutal, and constant. They train endlessly. They enforce law, often through fear. They write poetry, yes, but only between sword drills and clan disputes. And when they draw their blades, it's not metaphorical. One misstep from you, one insult, accidental or not, and they may cut you down in the street. That, too, is labor. The labor of keeping order. And it's always bloody. So when we romanticize hard work today, when we praise grit and hustle and rise and grind mentality, remember, that's not what this is. This is survival work, silence work, the kind of labor that erases your name while preserving your usefulness. You don't get paid, you get to live. And that's it. So tomorrow, when your phone alarm wakes you for your job, when you groan and hit snooze and sip a coffee before logging in, remember this. In medieval Japan, your alarm was the rooster. Your break was a whispered prayer. And your shift didn't end until the light ran out or your body failed. And when your body failed, there was always another waiting to replace you. You can serve your Lord. You can obey your Father. You can bow low, speak soft, and labor until your bones grind into powder. But in medieval Japan, none of that matters when the sky decides to punish you. Because no matter how disciplined you are, no matter how spiritually aligned or socially obedient, there is one master above all others, the seasons. And the seasons are not kind. They are not symbolic. They are not romantic. They are not cherry blossoms falling in soft silence or golden leaves blowing across temple stones. No, that's what you'd paint centuries later if you lived long enough to see it. The real seasons, they were enemies, not poetic metaphors, biological threats. Winter. Let's begin with winter. Not the peaceful, snow-dusted postcard you're picturing, but the kind of winter that claws at your fingers the moment you step outside. Your home is made of wood and paper. There is no insulation, no fireplace, no central heating, just a hibachi, a charcoal brazier the size of a rice bowl, sputtering heat barely enough to warm your hands. You wear your one kosode, the same hemp robe from summer, maybe with a second layer if you're lucky. But your sleeves are still thin. Your legs are bare beneath. You stuff straw in your sleeves and socks to hold in what little warmth you can steal. The cold is not just unpleasant, it is lethal. Children freeze in their sleep. The elderly huddle near the hearth and don't wake up. Water in the wash buckets freezes solid overnight. You go to the outhouse and squat over a pit in sub-zero wind teeth chattering, legs shaking, hoping your skin doesn't split. When it snows, you don't admire it, you fear it, because snow means blocked paths, frozen crops, broken roofs, and no firewood. And when the wood runs out, you burn anything: rice husks, thatched straw, old tools, broken furniture. And if you have nothing to burn, you sit in the dark and shiver yourself warm. But the cold isn't the worst part, it's the hunger. Winter means nothing grows. Your autumn stockpile is your lifeline. If you miscalculated, if rats got into your rice barrel, if a noble took more than expected, you'll spend January boiling bark, chewing roots, begging the gods for fermented millet that doesn't taste like rot. And if it doesn't come, you watch your children shrink. Children shrink. Spring, you'd think spring would bring relief. And it does at first. The snow melts. The wind softens. You stretch your limbs without pain. But spring is deceptive, because spring means planting. Labor season begins. It's the start of 14-hour days knee-deep in wet fields. Your legs raw with leech bites, your hands blistering around wooden tools. There are no gloves, no boots, just determination and muscle memory. The rain returns, the good kind, soaking the soil, and the bad kind, flooding your house, sweeping away bridges, drowning early crops. Rivers swell, banks collapse, and what little you managed to grow last year can disappear in one storm. Spring also brings disease. The stagnant water in the fields breeds mosquitoes by the thousands. The mud beneath your feet bubbles with bacteria. Children come down with fevers, coughs, rashes, and you keep working anyway, because planting can't wait. Not for sickness, not for mourning. Summer, then comes summer. The air thickens. The sun doesn't just shine, it presses on you like a weight. Humidity in medieval Japan is absolute. You wake up sweating. You fall asleep sweating. You sweat while standing still. The hemp robe clings to your skin like wet canvas. You develop heat rashes, boils under your arms, between your legs. You scratch until you bleed, then get infections from scratching. You haul water constantly, not for leisure, but to keep from collapsing. The bath water is warm, even before it's boiled. Your drinking water is lukewarm, gritty with sediment, and shared with the pigs. And if the summer heat wasn't enough to break you, the work will. The fields don't care if it's hot. The rice doesn't harvest itself. So you bend over in the sun, hour after hour, sweat pouring from your scalp, into your eyes, down your spine, soaking your robe. You feel the salt dry into crust. You don't stop. You can't stop. Some faint, some vomit, some never stand up again. And still, the sky cracks open with sudden storms. Typhoons hit with no warning, ripping thatched roofs into the sky, flooding fields, turning dirt roads into rivers of sewage. Your grain stores may be soaked. Mold sets in. You salvage what you can. You weep in silence, because what choice do you have? Autumn, and then autumn, the beautiful season. Poets will write haiku about red leaves and crisp wind centuries later. But here, autumn is survival math. You harvest everything. You gather, dry, hang, salt, ferment, bury, preserve. Your entire existence becomes calculation. Will this last through winter? Will it feed 6 mouths? What if someone gets sick? What if the taxes are raised again? There's no refrigerator, no plastic wrap, no preservatives. Rice is stored in barrels, wrapped in straw. Pickled vegetables hang from rafters. Beans dry in the sun. Everything is exposed. Anything can be ruined by moisture, mice, mold, or thieves. And if it is, there is no backup. You look at your storehouse and see the difference between life and death, between warmth and frostbite, between food and bark soup. And all of this happens every year, every single year. The seasons don't change for you, they devour you. There is no favorite season, no autumn hikes, no cozy snow days, no spring break. Every season brings its own kind of punishment. Each one finds a new way to break you. And through it all, there's nothing you can do but adapt, survive, endure. You cannot bargain with nature. You cannot defy it. You can only bow to the wind, the rain, the sun, the ice, and hope it lets you live another cycle. Because in medieval Japan, even the sky has a hierarchy, and you're at the bottom. You're tired, you're sore, the sun has barely peaked, and you've already poured yourself out into the land. Labor, hunger, heat. You walk back toward the village with a clay jug in hand. It's time to fetch water, not because you're thirsty, because everything depends on it. Cooking, cleaning, drinking, washing, bathing, rituals. But here's the first truth that hits you harder than thirst ever could. The water will not save you. In medieval Japan, water is everywhere. It flows through rice fields. It trickles from bamboo spouts at shrines. It runs down mountainsides in pristine streams that look as clear as crystal. But water is not what it seems. You approach the local stream, the same one your family has used for years. There's no plumbing, no aqueducts, no purification. The water you drink, cook with, and wash in comes from the same open source used by the rest of the village. And that includes the livestock, who bathe and defecate in it. That includes the latrines, built near the river's edge for convenience. That includes the upstream village, which dumped its waste into it last night. But you don't question it. You can't. You've never known another option. You dip the jug beneath the surface, trying to avoid floating debris. You hold your breath, not because it smells, but because deep down, you know. This water carries things you can't see, things no one understands. You call them miasmas, bad air, evil spirits. You don't know the word bacteria, but you've seen what happens when someone drinks too soon after the rains. You carry it home, sloshing gently with each step, hands sore from the rope handles biting your palms. You heat a small portion of it over the fire, not because boiling is common practice. It's not. Firewood is limited. Boiling is reserved for special tea rituals or medicinal brews. Most of the time, you drink it as is, and that's where death starts. At first, it's just a stomach ache. You think it's something you ate. Maybe the pickled radish was too old. But then comes the fever, the vomiting, the endless, violent diarrhea, and then silence. You know the symptoms well. Everyone does. The summer deaths, they're sometimes called. It strikes without warning, especially during the rainy season. A perfectly healthy child in the morning is a corpse by dusk. Sometimes it's dysentery, sometimes cholera. No one can diagnose it. No one can stop it. People whisper about spirits. Maybe a fox passed too close to the well. Maybe someone was cursed. You light incense. You hang charms. You chant. But you don't question the water because there is no alternative. The temples have their own wells. The elite sometimes collect rainwater in ceramic jars, filtered through layers of charcoal and gravel. You, a peasant, are lucky to even have a bucket. Rain barrels are expensive, and maintaining them takes labor you can't spare. And even rainwater can be dangerous. Standing water breeds mosquitoes, and mosquitoes carry fever. It's a constant, inescapable roulette. Drink and risk disease, or don't and risk dehydration. Now, let's talk about bathing. Japan values cleanliness. That much is true. Ritual purity is central to Shinto beliefs. Washing your hands and mouth at a shrine is a sign of respect. Families wash before meals, after work, during prayer. But cleanliness doesn't always mean safety. Bathhouses, when they exist, are communal. Heated water is shared by dozens, sometimes hundreds, with the same tub used over and over throughout the day. Before you soak, you scrub yourself with cold water, sometimes with ashes or a cloth, but still, sweat, skin, hair, dirt, it all mixes. The bath becomes a stew of humanity, and in the absence of filtration or soap, it becomes a breeding ground. If one person enters with an open wound or a cough, you all leave with something, and yet, not bathing is worse. Socially, unwashed bodies are considered spiritually impure. You can be excluded from gatherings, denied shrine access, or accused of moral decay. So you bathe, you risk it, and when the inevitable fever strikes, you say nothing, because shame kills faster than germs. Every home practices cleaning rituals. Floors are swept, utensils are rinsed, footwear is removed before entering the home. And yet, disease still spreads. Why? Because these rituals are based on belief, not biology. You might carefully clean a bowl with river water, unaware it carries bacteria from a dead goat. You might mop your floors with pride, while flies swarm your food bowls. You store leftovers in wooden boxes or buried pots, often infested with mold or insects. There are no refrigerators, no sanitation standards, no concept of cross-contamination. And if you die, they'll say you lived with unclean thoughts, or offended a spirit, or touched a cursed tree. You won't be remembered as a victim, just unlucky, or worse, impure. The Burakumin. When water defines class, if you're part of the Burakumin, the untouchable class, water becomes even more symbolic. You may be forbidden from using communal wells or entering public baths. Your hygiene is not just a personal matter, it's a social stain. You're considered spiritually polluted simply by birth. Even if you wash daily, even if your clothes are cleaner than a merchant's, you're still unclean in the eyes of the state. And so, many Burakumin live near the most polluted rivers, Why? Because no one else wants to. They haul water from where animals drink, where the dead are sometimes dumped, where poison from tanneries flows downstream. Their lives are shaped by water, and so are their deaths. In the West, medieval peasants often died from starvation or war. In Japan, it's something more insidious, something colorless, odorless, shared at every table, poured at every meal, whispered through every ritual. Water, the giver of life, becomes the quiet killer. And the worst part? You thank it for your survival anyway, because to curse water is to curse the gods. To speak badly of the stream is to insult nature itself. So you kneel, you bow, you ladle it into your mouth, and if it kills you, you die clean. You're hungry again, still. But hunger isn't just a feeling in medieval Japan. It's a constant presence, like the wind or the weight of your clothes. It hums behind your ribs as you work, tugs at your thoughts when you pause, sharpens your vision at dusk when the pot over the hearth starts to boil. But before you eat, ask yourself, what's in the pot? Because in this world, food is never just food. It is status. It is sacrifice. And above all, it is a gamble. You see, food doesn't just fill you. It can maim you, infect you, or slowly rot you from the inside out. And often, you won't know it until it's too late. White rice, polished, soft, fragrant, is for the upper castes. If you're a peasant, you don't eat it unless it's taxed from you and then sold back during lean years. Your rice is coarse, mixed with barley, millet, or buckwheat, sometimes bulked up with crushed chestnut, wild grass seeds, or even rice husks. And when the stockpile runs low, you stretch it with leftovers, with rice saved from last week's pot, scraped off the bottom and reboiled into gluey gruel. It may have mold. It may smell strange. It doesn't matter. Food isn't judged by freshness. It's judged by availability. Mold, especially yellow or black spores, clings to old grain. It brings with it dizziness, diarrhea, sometimes fever, but no one connects the dots. You vomit, and someone says the rice was cursed. You collapse from dehydration, and a monk tells your mother to offer incense to the harvest gods. No one blames the food, because blaming the food means throwing it away, and you can't afford that. Next come the fermented foods, which sound trendy now, but in medieval Japan were less about flavor and more about preservation warfare. Fish is gutted, packed in salt, and buried in clay jars, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. This creates narazushi, the ancestor of modern sushi, a sour, semi-rotted paste that smells like ammonia and tastes like survival. One wrong ratio of salt or one crack in the jar, and the fish goes bad. Not immediately, stealthily. Botulism thrives in anaerobic conditions. It doesn't change the color or smell of the fish, but it can paralyze your muscles from the inside out. Your eyelids droop. Your limbs go limp. You suffocate while fully conscious. But no one calls it poisoning. They say the gods took you silently. Pickled vegetables, tsukemono, are made the same way, packed in salt or rice bran, crushed under weights. The longer they ferment, the more sour, and sometimes the more dangerous. Soft spots, slimy textures, hidden fungus. You bite carefully, you chew slowly, you pray. Meat is rare, not for religious reasons alone, though Buddhism and later Shinto influenced purity laws discourage animal slaughter, but because livestock is labor, not lunch. You don't eat the cow, you use it to plow your field. You don't eat the chicken, you keep it for eggs. Pigs, only in some regions. Even fish, if you live inland, is a luxury. Most of your protein comes from insects, beans, or what the river gives. If you do eat meat, it's wild. A rabbit, a boar, maybe even a bird caught in the trees. And it's not butchered cleanly. There are no stainless steel counters or sealed knives. You gut it with a tool you use for firewood, boil it until it stops smelling, then eat around the parts you don't trust. Milk? Forget it. The idea of drinking animal milk is practically non-existent. There's no preservation method, no fermentation culture for dairy. You don't have cheese. You don't know yogurt. Butter is a myth. Calcium deficiency is normal. Your bones tell the story of your diet long before your words do. Brittle, bent, missing teeth by 30. Preserving food is a science that hasn't been invented yet. You bury things. You salt them. You smoke them, if you can afford firewood. But most preservation is short-term. A clay pot, half filled with ash and hope. You hide dried beans in rafters. Praying rats won't get to them. You bury pickled roots beneath the floorboards. Praying moisture won't seep in. You hang dried fish from the ceiling beams. Praying your brother doesn't eat it at night and lie about it. Sometimes you eat things that are already going bad. A slimy radish, a tuber with soft spots, a mushroom that might be the edible kind. You gamble because something that might make you sick is still better than nothing. And every time you survive a bad meal, you thank the gods. Every time someone else doesn't, you say they weren't strong enough. Table manners, class, and the social cost of eating. Even the way you eat is ritualized. You don't pick your food apart. You don't inspect it in public. That's disrespectful. You eat what's placed in front of you, without hesitation, even if you see the flies, even if it smells wrong, even if you feel your stomach rebel after the second bite. Spitting it out is offensive. Refusing it is insulting. Dying from it, that's fate. And if you're lower caste, you eat after everyone else. You eat what's left. You may not get a bowl at all, just fingers in silence. You may not be allowed to sit at the same fire. You may be given food so old, it's already sprouted, something new, but you eat it anyway, because to eat in medieval Japan is not to indulge. It is to survive, despite every reason not to. The ruling classes, samurai, nobles, monks, eat better, not always fresher, but with more ceremony. They have white rice, clean bowls, tables, servants, sake, brewed with polished rice and filtered through charcoal. They don't worry about mold or spoilage. They worry about reputation, not malnutrition. And in this way, food becomes not just sustenance, but leverage. Food is how lords control villages. Food is how husbands control wives. Food is how priests demand loyalty. Food is how caste is reinforced. One bowl at a time. And in this world, hunger isn't just physical. It's political. It's spiritual. It's generational. So the next time you reach into your fridge, hesitate over a Best Buy label, or toss out leftovers that smell a little funny. Remember this: in medieval Japan, you didn't have the luxury of caution. You didn't eat for pleasure. You ate fully aware that every bite might be your last. You bow your head before you eat, not because you're thankful in the way we understand gratitude today, but because it's expected, because the gods are watching. And in medieval Japan, the gods aren't metaphors or distant forces. They are real, close, demanding, everywhere. Religion is not a matter of personal choice. It's not something you practice privately or debate openly. It is embedded in the grain of your house, the rhythm of your day, the placement of every bowl and body. It shapes not just belief, but behavior, and every part of life, eating, sleeping, washing, walking, becomes a ritual performance to keep the unseen satisfied. You participate in both Shinto and Buddhist practices, not because you're devout, but because that's the water you swim in. Shinto tells you that the kami, the spirits of nature, of places, of ancestors, are always around you, watching, judging. A shrine sits in your home, even if your family is poor. A wooden shelf, a few offerings, rice, salt, a sprig of something seasonal. You must never point your feet toward it. Never forget to bow. If something bad happens, an illness, a death, a lost harvest, you must have failed them somehow. Then there's Buddhism, which comes in through the temple, through the funeral rites, through the cycles of rebirth that you don't fully understand, but which hang over you like mist. The monk says your suffering is part of karma, that your poverty, your pain, even the boil festering on your leg, is all the result of misdeeds from a previous life. You don't argue, you accept. There is no alternative. Rebellion doesn't free you, it stains your soul. You burn incense, you chant, you press your palms together and recite words in a language you don't speak. Sanskrit filtered through Chinese, then filtered again through the mouths of your ancestors. It doesn't matter if you understand it. You say it anyway, because silence during ritual is suspect. Disinterest is offensive. Faith is not optional. It's surveillance made sacred, made sacred. The temple is the center of your village, but it's also the court, the school, the archive, and sometimes the jail. Monks keep records of your family, your land, your birth and death. They perform the blessings. They also deliver punishment, social, spiritual, and in some cases, physical. If you're caught stealing from the shrine, you're not just beaten, you're defiled, marked, cut off from purity. No one will touch you, marry you, share food with you, and the rules never stop. They follow you into your home, into your marriage bed, into your dreams. Women who give birth without the right rituals risk bearing spirit-touched children. Men who die without a proper ceremony may return as hungry ghosts. A sneeze at the wrong moment could mean a curse. Stepping on a threshold improperly can invite a spirit into your house. Everything has meaning. Everything can go wrong. Even your neighbors are watching. Religion is not just belief. It's a form of social enforcement. If you fail to bow at the shrine, someone will report it. If you forget to cleanse your hands before prayer, Someone will whisper, and the shame that follows is more corrosive than punishment. It isolates. You become other. You become cursed. And in the rare moment you begin to doubt, when you feel anger that your child died, even after the priest chanted all night, or when you see your Lord live in luxury while your mother starves, you say nothing, because doubt, too, is dangerous. Even thinking the gods are unjust is a form of pollution, a spiritual disease that could infect your family. So you swallow it, like everything else. And when you die, and everyone does, early, you must have the proper rites, a coin in your mouth for the crossing, ashes scattered correctly. If the ritual is skipped, your spirit lingers. It becomes restless, angry. People believe that deeply. They will dream of you. They will hear your footsteps. They will blame every crack in the wall, every spoiled jar of rice, every sudden illness on your neglected spirit. Religion is not peace, not here. It's a structure, a code, a constant, invisible mirror that reflects your place and demands your submission. It tells you why you suffer, and then demands that you suffer well, with discipline, with humility, with silence, because in medieval Japan, the gods may forgive, but the people won't. You wake up with pain in your back. You don't say anything, of course. No one does. Pain is normal. Pain is expected. But this time, it's different. Lower, sharper, deeper. You shift, stretch, wince. Something is wrong, but there's no one to tell. And even if there were, they wouldn't listen. Not if you're a woman. If you're a woman in medieval Japan, you don't exist in the way others do. You are not an individual. You are a function, a daughter, a wife, a mother. If you do not perform one of these roles, you're not just invisible, you are suspicious. Every moment of your life is prescribed, watched, graded. Your value is calculated in quiet obedience and unspoken endurance. You were married off young, perhaps 12, maybe even earlier, not to someone you chose, to someone your father approved of, or more accurately, someone who approved of your father's rice yield. The marriage is not a romance. It is an agreement between households, a shift in assets, and you, standing there in your too long kosode, eyes lowered, hands folded, are the offering. Once married, your work doubles. You are expected to run the house, cook, clean, wash, raise children, while also working alongside your husband in the fields or at the loom. Your sleep shortens. Your stomach tightens. Your hands never stop moving. And if they do, someone notices. They always notice. Pregnancy is not celebrated. It's assumed. It is the purpose for which you were married. The birth itself will happen at home with the help of an older woman who may or may not know what she's doing. There is no doctor, no clean sheets, no sterile water, just hot towels, prayers, and pain. The baby may survive. You might not. And if you do, you return to work within days. There are no postpartum allowances, no care, no concern. You are praised for returning quickly, not for surviving. If you cannot bear children, or if you bear too many daughters, your place in the home becomes fragile. Whispers grow louder. Eyes grow colder. Your husband may take a second wife. He may send you back to your family. if they'll have you. Divorce is legal, but not equal. A man can end it with a note. A woman, she has to prove abuse or abandonment. Proof no one will listen to. And if you're unmarried or widowed, you become a target, a burden, a mystery. Older women who live alone, especially those with knowledge of herbs or healing, are treated with suspicion, accused of curses, witchcraft, bad omens. You may be blamed for failed harvests, for stillbirths, for disease. People avoid your eyes, avoid your doorway, avoid your name. Honor is your currency, but it is not earned. It is maintained through silence, through modesty, through erasure. You cannot own land. You cannot speak in court. You cannot walk freely after dark. Your kosod must wrap leftover right. Your hair must be tied properly. Your speech must be quiet. Your laugh, if it exists, must be brief and soft and apologetic. And still, you may be touched, not asked, not courted, just taken, especially if you work in a noble's house or near the estate or anywhere a man with power might pass through. There are no consequences. Not for him, not ever. For you, there is only shame, silence, maybe exile, maybe a bruised cheek hidden beneath a robe, maybe a life quietly ended and never spoken of again. And the worst part? You're not even surprised, because your mother lived this, and her mother before her, and her mother before that. So you rise, dress, bow, and step outside, and you endure, because you must. Because in medieval Japan, being born female means being born into a role so tight it leaves no room to breathe, and still, you are expected to smile. You steal a handful of rice. Maybe it was from your neighbor's field. Maybe it was from your master's storehouse. Maybe it was just a few grains that slipped from someone's basket, and your hand moved before your mind could stop it. Doesn't matter. You're seen. That's all it takes. There is no trial, no questioning, no attempt to understand the motive. Because in medieval Japan, justice is not designed to discover truth. It is designed to reinforce order. And when order is threatened, punishment comes fast, loud, and hard. Not in the shadows, but in the square. You're dragged to the center of the village. The people gather, not because they want to, but because they must. Participation in punishment is part of the same structure that governs everything else. Religion, duty, silence. To look away is to risk suspicion. To question is to invite shame. Guard declares your crime, theft, disrespect, insolence. It could be anything, even something as small as speaking too casually to someone of higher caste, or failing to bow deeply enough, or touching a tool you had no right to handle. Then, the sentence. If it's theft, it could be the amputation of a finger, maybe a hand. It's done with a dull blade, one that's been used a dozen times already that week. No sterilization, no concern for the screaming. You're expected to grit your teeth and accept your fate. If you cry out too loudly, if you curse, that could be considered an additional offense. Sometimes it's branding, a hot iron pressed against your forearm or face, a mark that never fades, a reminder to everyone, forever, that you once disobeyed. You will carry that shame into the bathhouse, the shrine, the afterlife. If the crime is worse, or simply deemed inconvenient by someone powerful, you may be sentenced to death. And not quietly. Executions are public, performed with ceremony, with precision, as a performance of control. Beheadings by katana are the most common. If you're samurai, there might be honor in it, a quiet moment, a clean cut, sometimes even seppuku. But if you're a peasant, it's different. The executioner may be drunk, the blade may be dull. You may suffer before you die. There is no appeal, no second chance. And even after death, punishment continues. Your family may be fined, ostracized, denied shrine burial. Your name may be struck from temple records. Your children may inherit your shame. A single crime becomes a generational curse. And not all punishments involve blood. There is the pillar of shame, a wooden post where you are tied and left for days, exposed to the elements, to mockery, to the whispers and stares of neighbors. You're not fed. You're not allowed to speak. If someone throws a rock, no one stops them. Or you might be forced into public humiliation, parading through town with a sign around your neck that declares your sin, wearing a straw cape reserved for criminals, sitting outside your own home while others pass judgment on you with stares that weigh more than stones. And all of this happens under the watchful eye of the system. Samurai, monks, landlords, elders, each one with authority to deliver verdicts, and few with interest in mercy. Laws vary from region to region. What's forgiven in one province may be punished with death in another. But one rule is constant. Justice is not blind here. It sees your caste, your silence, your connections, and it acts accordingly. If you are poor, justice is a hammer. If you are rich, justice is a curtain. Even the smallest infractions, speaking out of turn, questioning an order, walking in a space reserved for someone above you, can be twisted into crimes if someone decides you're worth punishing. And once you're labeled a criminal, it is almost impossible to be anything else. Even if you did nothing, even if your only sin was being in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong face. So when people say medieval Japan was a place of strict order, they're not wrong, but they often miss what that order cost. It kept things peaceful, but not fair, structured, but not safe, predictable, but never just. Because here, justice doesn't wait for truth. It waits for obedience. You don't expect to live long. That's the quiet truth hanging in every doorway, stitched into every robe, folded between every prayer. In medieval Japan, death isn't distant. It's not dramatic. It's not something whispered about in old age. It's ordinary, frequent, unceremonious. You prepare for it, not because you're morbid, but because you have to. You've seen death already, likely many times. Your sibling who didn't survive the second fever, the neighbor who fell from a ladder and was buried before sunset, the woman who bled out during childbirth with nothing but a rag in her mouth and prayers in the next room, a child gone in the night, wrapped in cloth and carried silently to the edge of the forest. No one asks why when someone dies. That's a modern question. And modern questions don't live here. Death comes by way of cold, hunger, infection, accident, childbirth. punishment, fire, water, or sometimes, for the very unlucky, all of them at once. You can live a clean life, say your prayers, bow where you're supposed to, and still be found stiff and still on a winter morning, curled beside an empty brazier, your fingers frostbitten and blue. And when you go, you may not be buried with dignity. That depends on who you are. If you're samurai, you have rites, cremation, sutras, coins, placed carefully in the mouth for the journey across the Sansu River, your name written in temple scrolls, your soul guided by chants. If you're a commoner, you might be buried in a shallow grave behind the village, sometimes burned in a communal pyre, sometimes wrapped in the same robe you wore every day, your hands tied to keep them from curling in death. No headstone, no marker, just the soft hush of dirt and the heavy silence of those left behind. And if you were poor enough, hated enough, outcast enough, you are not remembered at all. There's no ceremony for you, no incense, no chant, maybe a muttered apology from a neighbor if they liked you, but even that's risky. Mourning the wrong person might be seen as suspicious, because even death is political. Sometimes death doesn't even wait for nature to do the work. It's decided for you. A stolen turnip, a misstep in front of a lord, a whisper that you insulted the temple. One decision, one misread expression. That's all it takes. You're sentenced, taken, erased. And after you're gone, life continues. Because it has to. Fields still need tending. Meals still need cooking. The rice doesn't care who's no longer there to plant it. Your absence is felt, but not spoken of. And even when death is expected, even when it comes after a long illness or old age, it still carries tension, because death is not an end here. It's a transition, and the failure to honor that transition properly means one terrifying thing. You might come back, not as yourself, as something else, something angry, something unsatisfied, a Uri, a wandering spirit with your face but no peace. People fear these ghosts more than bandits. They fear the cold breath at night, the bowl that shatters with no wind, the sickness that follows a dream, because they believe it's you, punished by your unloved death, trying to find the ritual you were denied. So your family, if they can, burns incense, offers rice, hangs talismans. They do it not just for you, but for themselves, because your peace equals their protection. And this is what death looks like in medieval Japan. Not rest, not release. Responsibility. Your death is a debt someone must pay. In prayer, in coin, in silence. And if no one does, you haunt them. You haunt the house. You haunt the records. Or worse, you're forgotten completely. No stories, no chants, no offerings. Just one more soul swallowed quietly by a system that was always too loud to hear you. And the illusion of peace, it holds. It always holds. Because the machine keeps moving. And your name, if it was ever written, fades like ink in rain. So you've made it to the end. Or rather, the world has let you make it this far. You've endured hunger, filth, pain, fear. You've watched your dignity drip from your fingertips like water that couldn't be spared. You've stood in the rice fields with a sun that doesn't care how tired you are. You've whispered apologies to gods you were too afraid to doubt. You've labored under a sky that offered no kindness. And now, sitting in the dim light of your thatched home, the fire crackling low, you begin to wonder, was there ever peace in this life? Not the kind we know, not the quiet of a Sunday morning, or the stillness of a long walk, or the satisfaction of locking your door and being alone. That kind of peace didn't exist here. Couldn't. This world wasn't built for peace. It was built for endurance. And it was never made for you. Because if you're here, if you're from the future, you're soft by this world's standards. Your body has known too much comfort. Your mind too much choice. You expect things to work, to be fair, to be clean, to be safe. You expect food without parasites, water without punishment, medicine that does more than hurt you. You expect your suffering to matter. Here, it doesn't. Here, your pain is background noise. Your death is paperwork. Your existence is tolerated only so long as you're useful and quiet and perfectly, obediently invisible. So you ask, what would break you first? The hunger, the labor, the cold, the shame? Or maybe it would be the silence, the crushing, endless silence that swallows your questions, your anger, your personality, and tells you, this is not your place. That voice in your head that wants to resist, that wants to scream, that wants to believe it was meant for something more. It dies here, quickly, quietly. And yet, this world was real. This was life for millions. This was home. This was normal. For your ancestors, this was the only version of existence they ever knew. And they didn't have the option to escape it. But you do. You can open a tap and expect clean water. You can eat without fearing the mold. You can speak, post, shout, cry, without a samurai's blade correcting your tone. You can dream, refuse, demand, leave. You can be seen. And that's the real weight of everything you've just heard. Not how hard it was to live in the past, but how easy it is to forget that you don't live there now. You're here. You're alive. You are, in every sense, a miracle your ancestors wouldn't have dared to imagine. So tonight, when you step into a warm bath, when you wash your face without shame, when you eat a full meal and sleep behind a locked door on a soft bed with your name carved into legal documents and your dignity intact, don't just be grateful. Be aware, because history doesn't knock before it returns. And you wouldn't last a day in medieval Japan, but someone once did. And everything you have now was bought with the life they never got to live.